I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to the idea of when you guys have made a mistake in your past and somehow it managed to affect you in the future. Like it's something that still haunts you and still bothers you as you get older and older. It's something you can't let go. Well, this is what the story of Aku no Hana, also known as the Flowers of Evil, is about. Well, tune in as I talk about this manga and how it connects into real life situations. What's going on, everybody? It's your host, DigitalRelaxation, and I am back with another video. This is going to be something different. I haven't really done something like this in a while. This is going to be a discussion / review video about a manga I have recently read. Now, there's probably going to be some spoilers for this manga, so just going to throw that out there now. But my goal is to not really talk about the manga wholeheartedly. I want to also mainly talk about the connection to real life and personal experiences as well. It's just connecting this manga and how it made me feel while reading it and what I was understanding from it. So the manga is Aku no Hana, translates to The Flowers of Evil. It starts off as a typical slice of life story, but eventually it goes into something real deep. The main character is Tako Kasuga, and he is a kid who just seems to have like this huge love for books and feels like he is so apart from everyone in like his class and his town that he feels like there's no one that can really understand him and whatnot. He also has a crush on his this takes place in middle school, but this is like his little middle school crush. Her name is Nanako Saiki. Hope I'm not butchering these names. But no, he views her as like this angel, like this God gift, innocent, sweet girl who does no wrong and like holds her to like the highest standard. So one day he left his book in his class, so he had to go back and get it. And when he went back to get it, he noticed that Nanako's gym bag has fallen. And you know, in true Japanese fashion, like living up to like that perverted standard, like he decided to take a peek, and when he thought someone was like coming in on him or watching him, the best decision he decided to do was to take the clothing and run away with it instead of just putting it back. So he feels like, you know, he probably got away with it or whatnot, or maybe he can just return it quickly before anyone notices. So the whole point is like him kind of like having these dark desires and fantasies about her while, you know, viewing her clothing and whatnot. But it turns out that he was seen, and there's another student named Sawa Nakamura, and she's almost about the same as Tako, where she is like very distant from everyone in the class and everyone in the town, but she's just more unpleasant about it. Like she will just curse out the teachers. She doesn't even like try to do her schoolwork. Like they will have a test and she will literally leave it blank just because she just don't care. And it's just like she just want to do whatever because she just don't care about anything or these people or this town anymore. She wants to find like her own path type thing. So seeing that she saw him do that, she tries to blackmail him into doing something for her, but he immediately runs away, and he's like hoping that she didn't tell nobody in the class. And that just leads into one thing to another, just a whole big story of him living with this guilt of him taking his crushed clothing, and she's like holding that over his head and whatnot. So going for that main story, like that beginning, it really seems like a typical like childish slice of life story. Like, oh, it's this kid who just made an honest mistake and he's gonna, you know, dealing with the childish guilt of when you do something wrong. You making a big deal out of it, then it probably could be if they resolve it quickly. and this other girl is just like blackmailing him, like, hey, you don't do this for me, I'll tell everyone, blah blah blah, and all of that. So I wasn't sure about this story going forward, because it was like it's kind of leading towards, it has a lot of like kind of genres or elements in it, aside from probably, I want to say comedy maybe. There's probably some dark humor in there, but nothing like out there to try to make you really laugh. But there's like a romance story going into it too as well, and whatnot. And the thing that saved the story for me, not so much saved it, it was a great story, but the thing that made me like, all right, I can enjoy this a bit more better, is that it does time skip eventually as he gets older. And they showed like how this situation still affected him as he kept getting older and whatnot. And that's mainly what I do want to talk about. But before I do talk about that, like I said, the manga is great. I definitely recommend it if you're into, well, I don't want to say if you're not only if you're into, but if you also handle like these dark topics. The main thing this manga really focused on is pretty much like, I want to say mental health, like depression, suicidal thoughts, just isolation, and being dependent on other people and whatnot. It's a lot of things that this manga tackles, and for like middle school students, that like it's very, 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 very dark for like like these kids, like this is what these kids go through, and this is how they feel about things, and this is why certain kids unfortunately end up harming themselves in their younger life. But if you can get through all of that, definitely worth the read. And if maybe you could relate to something like that, like I said, it's the reason why I enjoyed it more, because I was relating to some of the stuff that was going on there, and I was like, okay, I understand certain things. There's some things that was probably like annoying, some cliche stuff that's in anime and manga, but get past that and just see the overall story of it. It's cool. There is an anime adaptation of it if you guys are not interested in just reading it, but it's an acquired taste. A lot of people I've seen in comments and whatnot dragged it because of the animation style which they use. I believe it's called rotoscoping, where they basically film like the scenes in live action, but they will go back and basically draw over the scenes, so it's to like make the animation and the characters look more realistic, but it kind of, I don't know, it's weird. Like it's like it kind of breaks the immersion sometimes if you don't know how to handle it. But I was fine with it. Funny enough that I actually have seen like a trailer or a clip of this anime like years ago. This anime actually came out in 2013 if I'm not mistaken. So I seen it a long time ago, I just never knew what it was. So here I am recently, I found the manga, and then I was like, oh, it has an anime, and I'm like, oh, this looks real familiar, and I'm like, oh, I think I've seen this before. So I went and watched the anime after I finished reading the manga. I would say I would probably say I would not recommend the anime if you do not choose to continue the story, because unfortunately the anime does stop at a certain point from where the manga went, and it never continues to another season. So unless you watch the anime and then pick up the manga, there's no point in watching the anime. And it's kind of, I don't know, I didn't like the pacing of the anime, only because I read it first, so I knew things that happened and things that I saw that they were stretching out just for the sake of like building this tension and like the feelings and things. Like, I don't know, like I feel like they could have, like, I really wanted them to go to a certain point in the anime, but they didn't, because they kept on dragging things out in like a couple of episodes where like half the episodes were really nothing. Like literally they did nothing for like half an episode, like no talking, no dialogue, or just a scene where they just walked. I'm like, yeah, I get the importance of what just happened, but it's like like we could have done so much more if you would just cut that in half or something. But that's that. So I recommend honestly just reading the manga. You could watch the anime after just to see the difference, but I don't think it's wise to do it backwards, only because of how the animation style and the character design is completely different from how it looks in the manga. So it's like you had to get adjusted to seeing these characters looking completely different, and now you gotta like recognize who's who, and it's just a different like style of emotion and facial expressions. Like a lot changed. So as I said, I'm going to be spoiling this manga like for the most part here and there, only so I can explain certain things more better when I'm trying to discuss things, so you get the context of what I'm trying to explain. So if you didn't already heed my spoiler warning earlier and you do not want to be spoiled, I advise you to click off, and if you do decide to watch it or read the manga and come back to hear my thoughts about this, feel free. But yeah, so the whole point of the story going when you like finish, well basically when you like finished everything and you try to break it down to chapters, like this does go into, I want to say it goes into like 3 phases. So the first phase is the early stage of him dealing with the situation of him stealing the clothes, and then trying to like not be blackmailed by this girl, but she still like gets to him, and his little romance situation with his crush, as that goes. Then the next phase goes into when he finally starts to like slowly come out his shell and start to understand himself better and embrace himself more. To the last phase is the time skip, where it's 3 years after what happens in the beginning, and he's like in high school at this point, and he's still dealing with the like those memories and the pain of that night, and whatnot, and it goes from there. So in the beginning, not much I want to speak about in terms of like connecting this to real life, except for one main thing. Tako's relationship with Nanako is one of when you have a fantasy of someone and you love them for the idea of what you have in your head and what you believe them to be instead of who they really are. As I said in the beginning, he viewed her as like this angel. He called her his femme fatale, his muse, his Venus, and all this other stuff, like trying to use these deep words because he's like deep into this book, which is titled Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire, and he kind of like tries to live by that book. He said when he read that book when he was young, it kind of like changed everything for him and whatnot. But yeah, so he always had this perception of her that she was this one way. So when he was finally getting found out about his dark and perverted nature, about him stealing the clothes, and Sawa Nakamura, the other girl that's like him, is trying to like get him to expose that, like you're a pervert, bro, like like you're a sick, just admit it. And he's just like, nah, man, that ain't me. I want to be a good guy for her, like whatnot. He's trying to like uphold this standard so that hopefully that she accepts him and whatnot. And she just puts him in all of this like weird predicaments and whatnot. So I know there's been times where people have like probably spoke to a girl or probably just admire a girl from a distance, and had these ideas of them and who they are, and probably fell in love with the idea of like what it is that they seem like they presenting to you on the surface, and that's what you fall in love with, but not really who they are on the inside. So it can lead to, once you are in this relationship with someone, you realize that this relationship is kind of empty because they aren't being the person you thought they were going to be, because you built up this fake reality of them instead of just getting to know them entirely from the get-go. So that was his thing. He felt like she wouldn't accept him because he's always into books. She probably think that he's probably a weirdo for that. And they eventually actually start their little middle school relationship. They start dating for a little bit. And she reveals about herself that basically she's like a weak person. Like, she just wants to do all these things. Like, you know, she puts on this good act, she study hard, she takes all these extra classes and whatnot to please her friends and family, but it's like she doesn't really know who she is and what it is she likes deep down inside. So when the first time they actually hung out together and he explained like his love for books and whatnot, she was like fascinated with that. So like a 180, kind of like he thought that she would reject him for it, but it turns out that's the reason why she got more into him, because of like, here, this kid is like, he found something that he's really passionate about, something he really enjoys, and I'm just here just doing things just to make other people happy instead of finding what I enjoy. So but then, like I said, it becomes twisted, like everything becomes flipped now. He buys the book for her so that, you know, she could read it and maybe understand why he likes it so much. But she later on reveals like she read it so many times, but yeah, she still doesn't understand it. Like, she doesn't understand him. And the problem is like, the reason why she don't understand him is because he has that dark side in him that he's keeping from her because of, you know, taking her clothes, but she's trying to like, he was trying to hide that from her for the longest. And the other girl is like just constantly bringing it out of him, and he's realizing like, only this other girl knows this side of me, and I feel more comfortable like being my real self with her instead of the girl that I actually liked. So it becomes one of those stories. So it's one of those stories of like finding someone that really matches you, I guess, or someone that really brings out the real you and someone you can be comfortable with, instead of like trying to put on the front for someone and hoping that is what's going to make them like you. And then going down towards the end of the first, well, not even the first, the second phase is when he starts opening up more. And this when the story starts to get dark. This is when he starts to realize more about himself, and this is when she starts to expose more about him. And he was like, you know, I can't be in this relationship with her knowing that I am like this sick person inside, but he's still too much of a coward to like just tell her. So he runs to the other girl to be like, no, I need you to tell her for me. And she's like, I'll help you, but you know, she does it in her way, where they sneak into their classroom late at night, and she makes him basically confess to taking her clothes and whatnot, like in a public manner, by writing it down on a chalkboard and leaving her clothes behind, so that when they come to class, that's, you know, everyone's gonna see it. But it leads to another moment where it's like she felt like, nah, like you gotta express yourself more, and he just constantly keeps changing the message. First it was being like, oh, I'm sorry I stole your clothes. Then he's like, oh, I'm sorry I'm a pervert. Then like, oh, I'm just a sick person. And he just completely just throwing everything out from himself. And then they just start trashing the room, throwing paint everywhere, just tossing tables all around. Like, they just like finally releasing everything that was built up inside of them, like that hidden side of themselves, like that was hiding. So like, that's the scene in the anime that they kind of drawn out afterwards. Like, they had this long silent walk back home together. They just holding each other's hand and just silently walking. And it's like, he's like, you know, in a few hours, once we go back to school, like, this is it. Like, my life pretty much gonna be over from here. And she's just like excited about it, because, you know, she just likes to see like she just wants to like everyone in this town to just like, I guess, suffer and whatnot, like, cause she don't care about them and whatnot. But when he gets to class the next day, he realizes that the parts where his name was written kind of got like smeared out by the ink, so nobody still didn't know it was him. Everyone believed that who'd been like vandalizing the school this whole time was like some older guy that they thought they saw suspicious. So he's been in the clear the entire time. But yeah, so the thing is that he when he was trashing the room and whatnot, he drew like a flower which is on the cover of his favorite book, which that he actually gave her. So his girlfriend noticed it and she confronts him about it, like outside of school. She like, so like it was you the whole time, and he was like trying to break up with her because, you know, she finally seeing who he is. He felt ashamed, so he's trying to hide from her. But she's like I said, that's a complete twist where she's like, she wants to understand more about him. She wants to accept this side of him. She wants to know why he is the way he is, who he really is, and he's just afraid of showing that to her. He just wants to keep like this image of her being innocent, and he wants to be a good man for her, but obviously that's not happening no more. So it just become a big issue of like, now he's trying to avoid this relationship because he realizing like it's not gonna work for us because we're just two entirely different people. And the girl that he's really understand that he really feels comfortable with is this girl who's been like torturing him in the beginning, but it like really she's just been trying to like expose his true self to him. And it leads to a point where she kind of like, not so much he kind of like basically like just breaks down eventually, like once things starts getting exposed and whatnot. He reveals himself like, you know, he's just an empty person. Like, you know, the real reason why he read all these books is not so much because he enjoys the book, it's just so that he kind of was just like thinking he was impressing himself for reading books at a young age, and he just wanted to hide who he really is and felt like he was different from everybody. But the truth is, he's just the same as everyone else. He's just empty and hollow, and he couldn't make a decision on who he wanted to let go between his crush or Nakamura, and they both were basically at their breaking limit as well. So they all basically, like I said, they all basically reached their breaking limit at this point. His crush is like 100% like gung-ho about trying to keep them together, and she's trying to understand him no matter what. The Sawa Nakamura, she's just she wants to escape from town. That's her whole goal. She wants to go to the other side. She's tired of like, she don't want to be with these people who just wants to live their life in a dull, boring manner. Like, she wants to explore and see something different in her life. And this dude, Taco, is just like finally accepting who he is. Like, he is a scum, like he's a pervert and all of that. And it just like gets to a point where he like 100% is on Nakamura's side, and he's willing to like do anything to like please her. And it got to a point where they both were basically was going to commit a public suicide in front of everyone. And for some reason she decided to push him away from doing it so that she can kill herself by herself, but they both were stopped, and that leads to like the end of that chapter. So yeah, like I said, it's like I talked about this in my podcast as well, like when you start to lose who you are and who you thought you believed you was, or who you believed you was going to be, and you start like you no longer know who you are anymore, and it breaks you down. Like you feel like there's nothing left for you. So for him, it was like he felt like, you know, he didn't love books no more. He didn't care about anything no more. He just wanted to basically go to the other side with this girl, and if that meant both of them having to like go to the other side another way, then so be it. Like he lost all hope. Like he felt like his life was already over at this point because everything was kind of being exposed to everyone, and he had no reason to like stay in this town anymore. So it brought him to a point where he was willing to commit suicide to escape from this town. Yeah, like it's really, really, really hard when you don't know how to properly deal with the situation of losing who you truly are and yourself. And it's like you like knowing how to take a step back and like reset yourself and like put everything on pause for a moment and try to find something new. It's very, very difficult for people to basically start a new life, in a sense. Like everything you thought you liked, everything you thought you adored, everything you thought you enjoyed, turns out it wasn't really true. So how do I find something else now? And that's the tricky part. Like some people just don't want to put that effort in no more. Like, you know, it's been years I've been doing this, years I've been living my life this way, and now I'm basically got to start back at zero again and build myself back up. Like it can become overwhelming because, you know, life is like, you know, that's time you can't get back. You gotta feel like, you know, you start over, you're gonna be left behind in life now. Like, what's the point of continuing? But like, life isn't a race. As most people say, no, it's not a race, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You gotta know how to pace yourself. You gotta know how to figure yourself out. You gotta know how to spend time with yourself and really understand who you really are and what it is you really like and what you really enjoy, to be able to explore different options and different avenues and things. Like, you know, some people thought that, you know, take me for example. When I was younger, I was kind of like an athlete or whatever. I thought I would be a basketball player. I thought that's what I was gonna keep doing. I joined basketball teams when I was young. I joined my high school basketball team, and then midway through high school, that's when I started falling apart and losing myself, and things that I thought I enjoyed, I wasn't enjoying no more because circumstances had changed around it. So I had to find myself again and find new things I enjoy. So I went from being a person who was going to play basketball to became someone who made music. Here I am making videos, podcasting. I enjoy doing these things, and it's a complete like turn from what I was doing beforehand. So it's like it's alright to take that time to find yourself, because it's gonna be worth it in the end. Like, to be happy with yourself and to accept yourself and to love yourself for who you truly are in the end. Like, that's to live without regrets and whatnot. Like, you live knowing who you are. You live like accepting who you are, and that's how you can move on in life. And that leads into later on in the manga, where he couldn't let go of what happened in the past, even though 3 years has passed since that event has happened where he almost killed himself, and he couldn't let go of the reason why she would stop him from doing it when he was like really committed to doing it. So it took him a few years to finally get back home, and he finally found her and confronted her about it and wanted to know why. And her answer, it could be like annoying for some people. Like, you reading it, you like, if you're invested in the story, like her answer is like she basically don't want to give him an answer, and he hated that. I mean, well, you can hate that, but I think he kind of understood it. So first he was angry at her for like everything she did, and then he was like, at the end he was like, but you know, through it all, I'm still just happy that your hair, because he didn't know, since that event happened, they haven't seen each other since that day. So he didn't know if she was still alive or anything. She left or not. So he ended up by chance finding out where she was and decided I had this opportunity to confront her. So he went and did it. And they kind of had like a little happy closure moment together. And after that, they basically did a whole time skip of how his life was afterwards. He went to college. His high school girlfriend, he ends up basically marrying her and having a family with her. The girl that he had a crush on, she ended up finding someone in high school, and they got married and had a kid. And Nakamura is kind of like, she accepted that it's hard to kind of understand her story, because it's like she tried several times to escape the town, and she was the only one in the story who ends up staying in the town the entire time, like throughout her life. And it's hard to explain if she's happy with that or not, because the last chapter that they showed kind of throws a wrench in that, where they showed they basically show like the first chapter of the manga through her point of view and how she saw the world, and she just saw the world as like everything was just dark and disgusting and whatnot, and she thought it was like, she's the only one who's by herself in this town, and like everyone else is just the same. So when she found him stealing her clothes, like she like, oh, there's someone else that's like me, and that's why she was so really like hooked on like trying to get him to expose himself so they can be, I guess, together in a sense of like embracing their true selves and not being alone with each other. So yeah, it's kind of tricky. So I don't know, it's hard to explain if her story kind of ends good or not. I think that's dependent on how you take it. But yeah, so there's got to be times where you have to like look yourself in the mirror, or whatever way you need to find closure from things that happened in your past life that kept on bothering you, kept on affecting you. Like, it took me years and years and years of trial and error and doing different things and using different coping mechanisms and all of that to finally get to the point where it was like I was finally cool with who I was. I accepted my past. I can move on from my past, and now I can finally work on building a better future for myself and accepting who I am now. Like, it's like I said, it's a long journey, but it's worth it in the end. I feel like everyone who's dealing with anything that feel like they are losing themselves and not knowing who they are anymore, like really like put the time in to focus on that. Like, it's really worth it in the end when you can build that connection and that relationship with yourself, and then eventually finding someone who's willing to, I guess, help you, someone who's willing to help you kind of make that change. Like, it doesn't have to be directly, it can be just like someone like that motivates you, like seeing something that they do in their life that like inspires you to, you know what, if this person can do something that they enjoy, they said they really enjoy doing this, they are going out to do it, you see them working hard for it, like what's stopping me from doing it? And that's also important too. As much as like, doing things on your own and accepting yourself, it's also always good to have that companion that completes you and kind of pushes you to the next phase. But that's mainly it. I feel like I went on the longest rant / review about this manga. Like I said, this wasn't really supposed to be about the manga itself. It was mainly supposed to be about the theme and how it relates to like things people go to in real life. So that's mainly it. Hope you guys enjoyed this little rant speech review discussion I had. And yeah, I'll see you guys the next time. Peace.